Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness podcast. We've got a lot to talk about on this episode. But first, I want to tell you guys about Wheelhouse Bicycle Shop in Creve Coeur. Go see Nathan Levanthal first at 770 North New Ballas Road in Creve Coeur or online at wheelhousebicycle.com. That's whether you're looking for a super specialized road bike or your kid's first bike. Doesn't matter. He can help you out and get you squared away. Pete, you know what? I'm throwing out the notes. How did we get here, Pete?
I don't know what you're talking about because 1 week ago we recorded Yuri Collins was our point guard. End of story. Today we're recording Yuri Collins is our point guard. I as far as I know, nothing happened.
In the Midtown Madness extended universe, the canon, canonically speaking, on our podcast, Yuri Collins has never left.
No, of course. No.
Are you telling me that we spent 3 hours on Twitter Spaces for absolutely no reason?
It seems like it, but not just us. A lot of other people. That is by far the most listened to, streamed, whatever thing that we've ever done. I mean, and we had no preparation, no notes. We had never done it before. It was just the heat of the moment. I don't know what happened, man.
I thought my first live stream was going to be me eating a spicy pepperoni pizza. And yet, I mean, like, so let's go ahead and run down. Well, we'll get into it. We're going to get into it, guys. But first, we're continuing our recruiting series, Pete.
We are. We got really good feedback on those first two with Nick Kramer and then Sincere Parker. So we're going to round out the fall signing class with Kellen Thames today, and I think everybody's really going to like this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him. It's interesting because in the lead up, I was expecting to talk to him about growing up in the Pattonville School District. Turns out he actually grew up in the Hazelwood School District, which I've lived now in, I think, both of those school districts. So I grew up in the Hazelwood School District. So I'm excited to chat with him. And, you know, I was excited before the news today, but I'm kind of interested to hear when he found out.
Yeah, same. There was a question. I was like, I don't think we can talk to him and not address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, so to speak, of
either
of
way.
Subjects. Yeah. And so, you know, when we were first writing out the notes, it was kind of like, how you holding up? How's everything going? You know, like it's really hard to ask that question. And now it's almost the same question, just with a completely different tone around everything.
Nothing makes sense anymore. Yeah, I think we'll just kick it over to this interview right now. Let's do that, Pete. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. This week, as Peter mentioned earlier, we're talking to Kellen Thames of Pattonville High School, where he recently wrapped up his senior season, leading the Pirates to a 17-11 record and averaging about 22 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals per game. He was named to the All-Metro First Team. He was Player of the Year for the Suburban North Red Division, Player of the Year in Missouri's Class 6 District 3, and he became Pattonville's all-time leading scorer, breaking a record that stood for 45 years. Kellen, thanks for coming on the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm curious. You attended Pattonville High School, which is in my neck of the woods and across the street from probably my favorite pizza place in St. Louis, Sarah's Pizza. I'm curious, have you gotten a chance to you know, pick out a favorite over there? Is that something you guys do like on a Friday night?
My favorite, which sadly got taken down, was my freshman sophomore year, I used to go before every game. It was Biology Pizza,
Oh,
right by this area where the movie theaters are and stuff like that. I used to go to every game. I always get the same thing: pepperoni, sausage pizza, made my own. And sadly, it got taken down. So I recently probably just get Chick-fil-A since it was like rebuilt. So
oh my God, man! You gotta head over to Sarah's, man, for a little dinner. You gotta try that place out. You won't be disappointed, I swear. Um, we were surprised in our research to hear that Pattonville's scoring record set by Darrell Washington in 1977 stood for so long, especially with players like Corey Tate and the Growers coming through over the years. Is that something you had in mind as a long-term goal, or did it really only hit you once you got there?
it kind of only hit me once I got there, but it was kind of both because once I understood like going into this year that I was like only like 300 away, I felt like I was going to get it. So it was kind of a goal of mine towards like 100 when I knew I was only 100 like away from it. But like throughout high school, I was just aiming for wins and just trying to get many like titles as possible. But once I started seeing how close I was to breaking that monumentous goal, I was just like, well, why not?
Yeah, I was really surprised that it still stood there. I talked to back in the day Pattonville's coach, a while ago. He said that Brian Grauer, when he was at Mizzou, used to come back to Pattonville and shoot around like in the off season and stuff like that. And he had this shot where he would stand at the half court line over on the sideline, like right where they meet, and he would shoot from there and bounce it into the basket. So it wasn't like a direct shot, but he would do a one bounce in, and he would make like 5-10 in a row. And I was like, a dude who shoots like that, I couldn't believe that he didn't have the record. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of D1 prospects these days. It seems like there's a lot of pressure to play at prep schools, the ones that like travel play like national schedules, regional schedules. Plus in St. Louis, you've got a ton of private schools, a lot of Catholic schools, and some of those have really become powerhouses. So I'm wondering, what did it mean to you to play for local public school like Pattonville instead of going down one of those paths? I mean, was it a matter of playing for your dad, or did it have kind of more meaning for you than that?
Granted, I did always want to just get coached by my dad because I knew he was always going to give me the best criticism to when like what comes to my game, what I always need to work on, no matter if I do have a good game. But it was just a high school experience. Like you're not really gonna have high school experience when you go to like all Catholic school or all boys school or stuff like that. Just having a prom, like a normal prom, and like just interacting with like different kids and different students, just getting a mixture of different people. It's just you won't get that from going to a different type of school. So I just decided to keep it to a public school because I knew I would be able to still show my skills somewhere, no matter where I went.
Your senior season was a lot more challenging than junior year, at least on paper. You guys finished 17-11, as I mentioned earlier, after going 22-2 the year before. Although you did lose the second, third, and fourth leading scorers of graduation after last season. Was it a matter of having a younger supporting cast, or a tougher schedule, or a bunch of different factors?
Um, a factor that many don't really know is that the guys that were seniors, we did have 13 seniors. That was their first year of varsity, so they just they had the unlucky bow of just having a lot of people that were capable of doing the same things that they were able to do. They were just older, so they just got their first lick of varsity this year. So just kind of just having that play into like the factor of us trying to mesh well together, playing with each other the first time, stuff like that. But all in all, we started catching on a good run towards the end of the season, but it sadly came to a close. But it was one of those years where, as far as chemistry wise, it was one of the best years.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. I didn't realize there were that many veteran players. You're coached. So you're coached by your dad, and we got to talk about the legacy a little bit. He was a legendary player at Mizzou, who he showed up in '93 with a ton of hype out of Jennings, puts together this huge freshman season, and they were awesome that year. And then he tears his ACL right before his sophomore year. Still manages to have a great career there after missing, a year to rehab, not to mention a successful pro career overseas. So as someone who's kind of been through those highs and lows and still managed to be successful, despite Mizzou fans still wondering, like, what if he had never been hurt? How has that kind of really unique experience and perspective that he has shaped how you kind of pursue your goals and what you're trying to do?
Well, he told me that nothing's like guaranteed. Like, you're always gonna have to go out and get it because you don't know what might happen the next game. Could be your last. So just every game, go out there and play hard, give it your all, and just don't keep the fact that, like, our last name does have a legacy behind it, but still find a way to make your own path. And that's what he's always given me, like making me a whole different player, like always being the taller kid growing up, but still making me a guard, just finding different ways to separate myself from his legacy. And that's what was able to make me establish myself as a player.
But you grew a lot too, though. I mean, you mentioned being a taller kid. At the same time, it was never like always like, oh, he's going to be a power forward or something like that, right?
No. My growth spurt was different from his. I kind of got that strike during that COVID area.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in that, like, because of where the position I played, I was still in that taller boat of people, but mine was more like separated. Like, I'd grow 2 to 3 inches here, or like 2 to 3 there. But like during COVID, I grew like 4 to 5 out of nowhere. So,
your dad's career overlapped with that of Billiken assistant or Pattonville legend Corey Tate for a few seasons. Your dad and Coach Tate go back and forth on who is the better player, and what side of that argument are you on?
I had to go with my pops on that one, but I'm pretty sure he would agree. I mean, granted that, like, they came in and they probably had a lot of one-on-ones together, but I'm pretty sure my dad came up on top, and they do have a lot of stories of stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure he would agree with me on that, but I'm going with my dad on that.
I think that's probably the right call. Don't listen to Tate if he ever tries to tell you otherwise. I found some doing research for this, and I kind of recalled over time. We've seen articles and posts where Coach Tate refers to you as his nephew. So it's clear that you guys have always been close. But how has that relationship evolved ever since he was hired at SLU and you became a prospect?
Well, just growing up, he's always been a mentor. He's always given me tools and just little nitpicks of what I need to work on, just always throwing his 2 cents in. And now that I'm going into SLU, now he knows that I can, like, work with him, work out with him, and I just have more access to just his knowledge of the game.
Besides, obviously, your relationship with Corey Tate, what is it about St. Louis University that really enticed you to stay home and represent the city?
It was the culture. The coaching staff felt like family. The players felt like family. It's just like an easy environment to come into. And also just having my family close to be able to come to my games and just not being too far from home, not having to worry about being homesick and stuff like that. Just feeling at home, playing the game that I love is what really made me all this.
Were you, did you ever, pick the obviously you probably picked the St. Louis guys on the team's brain as far as staying home, but especially Terrence Hargrove. It was very widely publicized that a lot of the reason he stayed home was so his parents could come watch him play. Did you and him ever talk about that and whether, how he feels about it?
We never really had a conversation about, like, stuff like that, but he, as far as just, like, I've heard his story and stuff like that, and that was a big part of why I thought about keeping my family close so they can just experience what I want them to experience.
We had Nick Kramer on the show a couple weeks ago, and we talked to him at the time, watched a lot of the games you guys played with Brad Beal Elite last summer, and saw you guys really do have a good on-court chemistry, and then he talked about your relationship off the court, traveling and all that kind of stuff. What's that relationship like from your perspective? And I think he committed first. So what kind of impact did his commitment have on yours?
Well, it just made it easier knowing that I have another person that I know and I'm really, like, good friends with coming to SLU. So during the summer, we stayed in the room together. We were real good friends, got an even closer connection through that. And then just being on the same floor together, coming in together, knowing where his spots are on the court, just hitting them in the same areas that he knows he's going to knock the shots down at, and just been in relationships with him through practices and stuff like that. We played against each other a couple of times, even growing up through AAU. So we've always had like a connection through there. So just being two St. Louis kids coming from the same area, going to the same college, is just being good friends just made it easier for us to gym well together.
I'm curious about kind of your perspective on social media as a recruit, because quite honestly, you really keep a low profile when it comes to social media, and I'm wondering if that's kind of an overall strategy or just kind of a reflection of your personality. I mean, on top of that, your dad has been pretty selective about what he says and doesn't say about your recruitment, especially.
Yeah, growing up, I just know the way you carry yourself off the court translate a lot more in life than what you do on the court. I mean, on the court, you can have two different personas. On the court, you can be a type of a Russell Westbrook type of guy and stuff like that, or you can be like just a laid back type of guy on the court. But off the court, you can be like a outgoing type of person and stuff like that. But I like to keep a low profile on social media. Like, I don't really keep myself in the drama and stuff like that or anything. I just watch what I say, watch what I do, because I know that can like lead you down into like different scenarios that I probably don't want to get myself into. So I just watch what I say and keep myself in check and stuff like that.
You have wisdom beyond your years in that regard, I gotta say. But because you and your dad and everybody, you kind of kept a low profile during your recruiting process. I didn't see a ton about who else was recruiting you, who else was offering you. I mean, I saw a few, but I'm curious who else besides SLU was kind of in the mix during your recruiting process.
I had a lot of interest, like about 4 offers. Had a lot of the A10 conference, MVC, some Big East, but overall, like the main one people were talking about was Mizzou because my dad went there, but
right.
It wasn't really offers because a lot of them were still in progress. Like, we had Peach Jam coming up, so I was gonna meet them there, but I committed to SLU before then because I knew that was the place I wanted to go.
I like that.
What aspects of your game, going into your freshman year, what aspects of your game are D1 level right now? I'm just curious, how you see yourself fitting in immediately.
Well, it's my versatility is a huge part. I can play 1 through 4, possibly. I can do a lot of things on the court. I'll say my skills are like, I think I can get better in each and every like aspect of the game, but I feel like since my dad has always been able to like keep me different from the bunch and always work on different parts of my game, no matter how tall I've gotten or how big I've gotten, I'm able to like just play. I can be a 3-and-D guy. I can play the 2. I can play the 1. I could possibly slide down and guard the 4. Just being versatile on the court, just being like a unicorn type of player, not being able to just fit in one area, just sliding in different areas, staying in our court like that, stuff like that, just being different.
So then on the flip side of that, what are the things you think you need to work on if you're going to make an impact at the D1 level?
I feel like I'm going to have to work on communicating, just being a more vocal leader. I've always been like a low profile type of guy, like you guys have said, like on social media, just being more outgoing on the court, being more spoken, just making sure I'm a more communicative like type of leader instead of just an example.
Well, we've established that you don't post a lot on social media, but I'm sure you've read just the insane amount of news that has come out in the last week. Man, like what? What have you been like? Has the coaching staff been in contact with you? I mean, I got to imagine everything was kind of thrown into an absolute whirlwind for everybody involved.
Yeah, but I'm just glad everything's kind of just back to where it needs to be. When that happened, nothing was really said because everybody was kind of shocked. I was shocked. I didn't know that was going to happen. I'm just glad my guy's back, and I get to learn from somebody that has experienced a lot.
Not to start any, we're not trying to start any controversy, but when you saw that, were you like, all right, my turn? Were you like, all right, well, I do fancy myself as a bit of a point guard. Were you like, I can handle it? I get it. Man.
I just know Yuri. I knew Yuri growing up, so I wanted him to where he went, and I just was like, well, I'm still, that doesn't change my decision. That's all.
Right on, man. Hey, we're not here to, like I said, we're not here to get you to confess to anything, so no big deal.
Yeah, you should be a pretty good matchup for him in practice too. I mean, a much different size and, like you say, versatility, different look. I also, circling back to Kramer, I like the idea of you two, like, you're going to be facing the veterans a lot in practice, right? Like the guys who are all coming back and playing together. I like the idea of you two on the squad against them in practice, given that most times when the younger players come in, they haven't played together, but you two have played together so much. So maybe you can kind of throw some looks at them they aren't used to yet.
Right.
So what's next for you? I mean, you've got graduation in May, and then how long is it going to be before you're down on campus, starting classes, working out, stuff like that?
I'm definitely doing summer programs, just to get a head start on things. I like just being ahead in the educational game as well, because I do want to major in business. And I'm coming in June for summer workouts and stuff like that. I'm going to be there in June to move in. So it's not too long from now. I should be up there.
Well, hey, Kellen, it was really good to get to know you, man, and we're really excited to have you as a Billiken. And man, like you're wearing the Billiken hat, you're wearing the Billiken shirt, man. We love to see how excited both you and Nick Kramer for that. Or all
Sincere.
three of you.
Sincere.
Yes,
yeah, he did too.
He's all three of you are real pumped to be Billikens, and I think that rubs off on the rest of the fan base, and they see how into it you are. So we can't wait to see you in the fall, and best of luck with finals and graduation and all that other stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again.
Yep. We'll talk soon, man.
All right.
Pete, man, I love these kids. There's absolutely, you know what I did? I have said that the whole Team Blue culture, like I was very frustrated with it. And maybe this hinges on the news that we got today. But you know what? These three kids, there's a culture among them that's, very excited to be Billikens. I knew a lot of college athletes in my day who didn't care about the mascot or what jersey they were wearing. They just were looking to win, you know what I mean, for the team, like for a team, or play at their best. But these kids seem to be buying into being a Billiken.
I love that you pointed out that he and Sincere and they all were wearing SLU gear to talk to us, and that immediately just struck me that right away there's that. But I don't sense any like attitude or ego or anything from any of the three guys, the three who signed in the fall. I mean, they really have bought into the culture. They seem like really good kids that all get along and say the right things and project the right way. They really do seem like genuinely nice dudes who mean what they say, and I love it. All in on these three, man.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're going to get into the week that was, but I think, you know what? In the spirit of keeping our podcast as PG-13 as possible, I think I'll pass on the use of expletives. But screw Rocky Top, man.
I've never been a Tennessee fan. I mean, I'm a SLU fan through and through. I never really had super strong feelings about their program, but I don't care for them right now.
Yeah, and you don't look good in orange anyway.
No, not my color.
Let's run down the timeline. Okay, Monday, Pete, what happens?
So Yuri Collins, SLU point guard, announces on Monday that and this is after, mind you, he'd already said he'd gone through the NBA draft evaluation process. Now he says he's going to enter the transfer portal, shocking our fan base.
Especially after we thought we wrapped a bow on it Friday.
That's right. I mean, because
or Sunday, sorry.
We thought, okay, so there had kind of been these rumors like, hey, Yuri is in Tennessee, and we're like, well, he's not in the portal. He said he'd go through the draft process. Is there some smoke here? And then he rolls out his unknown YC product line, which we mentioned on last week's show. And we're thinking like, all right, yeah, he's, a guy who's leaving doesn't do that. He's solid. And then the next day he says he's going to the transfer portal, and it's just even though we had kind of heard these rumblings, it was shocking. Now, it wasn't until Wednesday that his name actually shows up in the portal. And within 24 hours on Thursday, we're hearing rumors that he's lining up campus visits. And some of the kind of the feeling we're getting, the vibes we're getting seem to be kind of negative, between him and the program.
We got to go back to the spaces that we did because...
Yeah, I was going to circle back after doing the official timeline.
Yeah, sure.
Because it does end today as we record Sunday with him staying at SLU.
Right.
But yeah, Monday after he announces this, I'm in a headspace where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get any more work done today because I'm like, what is going on? I think you were in the same place.
Well,
we open up.
Let's remain plausibly deniable for what happened between the hours of.
Okay. At exactly 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central, we decided to open up Twitter Spaces.
Yes,
and we had a huge.
I just talked like I literally started out fumbling how to start the space. I'm literally drawing on about nothing, like waiting for Peter to join.
I think I was trying to sign in from the same account on a different device, and it wasn't letting me. And so the first 5 minutes were technical problems.
Yes.
We clearly had never done it before. We had no notes, we had nothing prepared, and just went.
Yeah, I think the more interesting thing is I learned how to be like a drive time call-in radio host on the show. I was trying to do like Mike Lowry and Bad Boys 2. Yo, you hot? It was so weird, man. But it was, I think the highlight, but by far the highlight of the entire Twitter space was the guy crying at the end.
Yeah, who I meant to go back and look at his profile, and somebody else did, and it seemed like he was a troll. I mean,
that's still hilarious. He did say baseball. He did say baseball too when he entered.
I thought he was just. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I guess you had like gone on mute or something at the time.
I was laughing so hard.
All right. Well, I think that's as good a place to wrap it up as any. And I was like, okay. So I was either really insensitive to someone who may have been like his uncle and really was emotional about this, or I just, was too nice to a troll. So either way, it was a very odd way to finish. But we had a lot of action in the meantime on that thing.
Yeah, I was riding a fine line with who I wanted to bring in. I was like, again, this is all flying by the seat of the pants. So I really tried to limit it to people that had interacted with our account before.
Mm-hmm.
But then, we had that Ray guy. I don't remember what his full deal was. And then I think he knew Yuri. And then, of course, we had Tyler Coleman on.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'll just leave that. I don't know if like Tyler Coleman, going out and basically telling SLU fans that, you got to pay or whatever, and then getting dunked on by Larry Hughes. I have trouble getting on fans for not actively pursuing NILs. It seems like telling somebody else how to spend their money.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, look, it's new territory to all of us. And Tyler
Absolutely.
did to his credit have positive things to say about SLU today, but I mean, he wasn't the only one. There were plenty of local, St. Louis area people who are wired in, whatever you want to call it. Whether it was I think Coach Reed chimed in a little bit, and we had Marcus Wilson, who's a former SLU assistant, who's
Yeah, that
he's still
was.
involved with the game, and he's John Bull, the prospect out at CBC. I think he's his legal guardian, because Bull's from Sudan and or South Sudan, and he more or less kind of was saying the same thing. I mean, so there were a lot of people kind of taking that side, like, hey, if
And
SLU's going to play the game, they got to play the game. And so I get that perspective. I don't. I also get why we don't necessarily have to like this.
yes.
I think bottom line is we're all really getting used to this. This is happening so fast, and we're getting used to how this is going to happen. I mean, this is certainly new territory for SLU in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, obviously, there was a lot of smoke about where he would have gone. He obviously set up visits, not only to Tennessee, which was the main culprit in what I would consider tampering on a grand scale. But I mean, do we think those other visits were just kind of like smoke screens or?
I have no idea at this point, because we were hearing about this on like Thursday. Here's at least 5 other schools we think he's going to visit, and we had heard names of other schools who may have reached out to him before he was in the portal, and like there were just so many rumors and reports and things. um I don't know. I don't know what was real and what wasn't.
There was accusations that this would be bad for schools involved, not named St. Louis University.
Yeah, that came up in our spaces a little bit, when we were on Twitter Spaces, that it was not going to be good for schools who were accused of that. And people have brought up the point, like, hey, maybe Tennessee really was the one. Maybe Tennessee was the one leading. And then when these rumors went on for so long before he actually entered the portal, that if he winds up going there, it doesn't look great for them.
It
And that
looks horrible.
yeah, and that seems like maybe something that you could even take action on if you're another school, because everybody wants to accuse everybody of tampering if a player you like leaves and goes somewhere you don't want to go, right? But when you have weeks worth of smoke building before a guy's actually in the portal, that seems like an actual problem.
Yeah, so I mean, it's entirely possible then that the fan base absolutely screwed this up.
They've they very well may have.
I
Like,
mean,
the wrong person got a hold of the rumor, and uh put it out there all over Twitter, message boards, whatever. The fan base runs with it, and basically makes sure that it can't happen, because if it does, they could get slapped on the wrist. Who knows?
yeah, I mean, let's just run down kind of possibilities of how we'll say we're going to operate on these possibilities that Tennessee backed out, right?
Hmm.
And we'll operate. That first assumption is that that Tennessee, the coaching staff, the alumni were all involved in this, right? From the
Hmm.
beginning. And Tennessee coaching staff backed out because of the pressure of tampering. Conversely, it could have been that Tennessee coaching staff may not have known. Like it could have been like a back channel deal with a booster and an assistant coach. And maybe Rick Barnes doesn't know. Maybe Rick Barnes only finds out later. I mean, I I forget how like all of these guys that are at the top of their professions really don't like pay attention to anything extraneous. They really do have a one track mind, and that's how they're so good at what they do. And I imagine that it's entirely possible that a Nevin Shapiro like situation where a guy just went rogue, and then Tennessee thought like Rick Barnes like, oh, now he's in the portal, like let's go after him, or so one of his assistants tells him. It's That's an interesting aspect too, that he finds out that, wait a minute, this had already happened. Like, we can't be doing this.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more to the rumors that it was Tennessee, that maybe they got in their own way, things like that. There was a number being thrown around for an NIL deal that had been arranged, in terms of like how much he might be getting in NIL money to go there. And I never saw that substantiated at all. So I don't know if there was and how much it would have been or anything like that. I mean, because the initial thing is Yuri said he was going to go through the NBA draft evaluation process, and it I guess it would stand to reason that he got feedback that you need to play another season on a bigger stage, than SLU. And so if that's what prompts him to kind of go to the portal and start looking bigger, that's one thing. um but if it's driven by NIL money, I mean, I don't know, I never really saw that substantiated in a way that was, I don't know, not that it ever would have been. But then when you see things like that Nigel Pack deal from K-State to Miami, where they just, whoever's handling this, I'd never heard of the company or whatever, they just basically say 2 years, 800 grand plus a car. And they're tweeting that out like they've just secured a deal for a client. And
I
I think that's
mean,
the first time any of us have ever seen anything like that in college sports.
yeah, and I mean, paging Nevin Shapiro,
Right.
um, the U that is,
Yeah, they pioneered it, man.
dude, that's bizarre because it reminds me of so much of the Pony Excess documentary, and that like. What's his name? Herschel Walker is just rolling around in a brand new Firebird or whatever. It's crazy, man. Like, this is
Yeah.
nuts. Uh, I'm all for, getting these guys theirs, but like, there's got to be something. And this could be a landmark case, honestly, of, you know, this one way or the other, whether Yuri Collins would have decided to stay at SLU or left and went to Tennessee, or where, like, let's say he did decide to go to Tennessee. I mean, if I'm Chris May and Travis Ford, I'm putting a full court press in the media. Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily at Yuri, but and not necessarily at the idea of NIL, but at the idea that, hey, there was a shit ton of smoke on message boards and rumors and about Yuri getting an NIL deal and then
Hmm.
and then he actually goes to Tennessee.
Hmm.
Like, I'm having a shit fit.
Yeah, and at the same time, there could also be the kind of, it's uncharted territory for us in terms of, you know now he's maybe got leverage to stay, like, and maybe we throw something together as SLU to get him to stay. We don't know yet. I mean, like, this is all pretty brand new. Frank Cusimano did just tweet out. I'm just seeing this. Travis Ford was driving when he got the news that Yuri was entering the portal and said he almost drove off the road. Today, he got the news in his office that Yuri was coming back, and there was a celebration. More tonight on Sports Plus at 10:30. By the time anyone hears this, Sports Plus will have already aired, but I'm sure that's already making the rounds in Billiken land.
That tweet annoys me for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, yeah. Well, it sounds like Travis is going to talk to Frank about all this. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
not talking to us. What the hell, man?
Yeah, we're gonna have to get our people on this. But no, I mean, so it sounds like he is going to talk about it. There's still a lot we don't know. Like we're saying, and like this is all very rapidly developing, and I would major mea culpa on my part because I was certain he was gone by Thursday based on the things that we were hearing. Because like, look, we're not Frank, we're not Stu, we're not like the proper media or whatever, but like people talk to us, like we things come across our eyes, like people like to send us what they think or what they're hearing or anything. So we do hear a lot of different things, and it just by Thursday it just seemed so done to me that he was gone. I was
Yeah.
100% certain that he was gone.
I always said the longer this drags out, the more likely it is that he would return.
Mm.
By more than likely or more likely, I literally mean like 40%. That's where like
That's way above where I was.
yeah, no, but I mean, I think I texted you. I said never. You know what? Like it seems bleak, and this was after me. Like I spent an entire friggin' week rationalizing like
Hmm.
exactly what I wanted to say on this podcast about the Billikens going forward. I mean, I was just about to say, the longer this thing goes, the more likely I think it is that there's a chance he could change his mind. I was gonna say that we're only two solid point guards away from still being the same team, which actually I think is true because of all of our scoring weapons. Um, you know what I had I I was fine. Like I was kind of content, and this really brought me. I had a rough couple of days. That Tuesday, man, was not a good day for me.
It's just been a wild ride all week. I don't, I don't know. I just,
Um,
I'm
well,
glad we are where we are. I
yes,
joked in the beginning of this. Yuri Collins was our point guard when we recorded last week. He's our point guard again. And as far as I'm concerned, nothing happened in the middle. I'm glad to be back here. I'm so glad to be wrong. I admit I was completely wrong on the read on this one. Just trying to piece together everything I had, and you know, um, we should be really, really good this season. We just need a couple of bigs. I wouldn't mind a nice combo guard coming in, and we're in great shape. Got great depth and so many scoring weapons. With Yuri back, it just kind of, now you just go, okay, we need some help for Francis down in the front court, and we'll be good to go.
um, I love that attitude that you brought at the beginning in the joke, but it's clear that things did happen, and fans are going to feel a certain type of way. And I mean, I think I'll tell you what I feel personally, but how should fans react, and how do you think they will react? Say Chaffetz Arena on late October, early November.
Yeah, so this has been what, like 7 or 8 hours now since the news that he was returning dropped. Um, what I'm seeing initially, and I have not, I've been doing stuff with my kids, my family all weekend, so I haven't been on Twitter or the message boards for anything much. But what I did kind of gather in the half hour leading up to when we recorded, it seems pretty positive so far. Like I don't think it doesn't seem like anybody's harboring any ill will here. Um, at least in the initial. And I do sort of wonder, like over the next few days and week, as people kind of think through it, how they feel about him, because you do want to have everybody loved Yuri Collins, like the guy
Yeah.
who's local, 3 years, led the nation in assists. He's a special player, he's small, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He just kind of felt right at SLU and with this fan base and everything. Um, yeah, just like a tough guy who's kind of soft spoken, but at the same time a leader. And you want to keep those positive vibes going, but this is always kind of there, like
Hmm.
it's always, I do wonder as time goes on if people kind of scratch their heads and go, what was that all about? um I don't know if your read has kind of been the same so far or not. And I don't, I have more trouble saying how fans should feel. I mean, everybody's going to feel their own kind of way. I'm still processing for one. I'm glad that he's back, to have him back. I just hope that everybody's all right.
Yeah, I think the Billiken fans should be happy that he's back. I think nobody should fault Billiken fans for being upset about the unknown apparel line drop right before.
Mm,
I think absolutely Billiken fans who bought merchandise have every right to be upset about that, for sure. I think that I don't. I just think that you know, at the end of the day, it only hurts to sow the seeds of discontent. I think as we've seen clearly, I mean not clearly, but potentially speaking, we've seen Tennessee fans fuck up uh, a deal with Yuri Collins. I mean, by their activity on the message boards and social media. And if that's the case, I think Billiken fans could take a hard lesson and maybe just kind of keep it positive. Welcome back, Yuri, and you know, look, we were all this age once. I mean, 21 is an adult in the eyes of the law. Mentally speaking, I've when I was 21, I definitely wasn't 18. Uh, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, man, and just move on. I think, and I think I would encourage Billiken fans to do the same.
You really did touch on a point there that I think is so important, because sometimes when things don't go your way as a fan, people lash out so quickly, and sort of lose perspective. Like in recruiting battles, somebody picks another school over yours, or and you kind of forget, like, oh, this guy might be 17, 18, 19 years old. And not only that, and Ford Stewart said this all the time, never stop recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just recruiting high school and prep players and JUCO players to come into your school. You're recruiting the transfer portal now. You're recruiting your own roster now, as we're seeing. So like, if a fan base jumps all over a guy and is throwing all this negativity at him, he's not going to want to come back, or he's not going to want to come there, or like, he's going to remember, hey, those fans were pretty gracious, or I didn't really hear grief from them when I didn't choose their school last time they recruited. Now I'm transferring and I have positive feelings about that place. It might be a good destination for me right now, which isn't to say fans being nice to somebody online is what's going to seal the deal, but like, just don't put negativity out there. A lot of people were pretty upset at Yuri this week,
and rightfully so. I mean, he didn't handle it with the most delicate of
but I still don't think it's a reason to be lashing out at people online. So that's really
no.
all it is.
Now 100%. If you want to say that if you wanted to cancel your unknown order, hell yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Although now they're kind of like, never mind. Actually, maybe I want that back after all.
Yeah, this is I treat everything like from the lesson I learned from Coney 2012. I wait about a week.
I think Twitter is like the ultimate snapshot of that over and over. Like a breaking news story you know nothing about, and everybody's jumping in, and like almost everybody's wrong within minutes, let alone hours or days. So like, let a thing happen, get your information together, form your opinion over time. But I am curious, like, okay, we're talking about how fans react. What do you think about the players? How are they going to feel about this week, this sort of dalliance with the transfer portal, his return? Anything we've heard in the meantime is rumors and hearsay, but what do you think this does?
I think that Division I athletes are hyper competitive at a point where they will more quickly forgive if they can win. And I think at this point, I would imagine that most of this team probably spent the good part of the last 4 days trying to re-recruit Yuri back. I doubt they had any sort of goal other than to get him back on this roster. I think everybody will. I mean, we've seen Gibson Jimerson tweet out, "That's my point guard." Terrence Hargrove might have retweeted it with a positive message. But yeah, I think they're competitive and easy to forget if they have a chance to win. Now I think a meeting should. If I'm coach, I'm holding a meeting, man. Like,
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see if we're talking about an NIL deal where Yuri got the bag. I think that's an interesting perspective. I think that so nobody else gets the bag. Like, I don't know. Does that affect things? But I think teams across the nation are gonna be dealing with that.
It's a weird incentive now, right? I mean, like I said, it's the first time we've seen something like this happen. And if you're looking around the room and you go, well, wait a minute, do I just need to put my name in the transfer portal with no intention of leaving, and then I get a little retention bonus to stay here? I mean, there's a lot of implications with this. I think, like you say, a team meeting is absolutely necessary, and I'm sure they're way ahead of us on that thing, on that front. But yeah, I don't necessarily like the sort of economic incentives here. It's just like, it just kind of feels like if a player wants his value to be realized, he needs to make himself marketable, and that means going into the transfer portal or declaring for the draft, even if you've got no intention of going anywhere. I don't know how this all plays out.
It's a bargaining chip. Like, it's
right.
crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like they just need to, I don't know. It's almost like I don't know. I think we'll get into this with the NIL discussion coming up, but there's some wide ranging implications here.
Yeah. Well, you got to remind me to did I talk about transfer, as far as the sitting out transfer? Did I talk about that while we were recording? Or did I talk? Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
We'll get into that then when we get into the portaling NIL discussion. Billikens had a visit by a player that's in the portal. We did not contact him prior to entering the portal, as far as I've been told. Andrew Carr, Pete, tell us what the Billiken fans need to know about this kid.
Andrew Carr just wrapped up his sophomore year at Delaware, where he actually led them through the Colonial. I think they're in the Colonial conference tournament and into the NCAA tournament. He's a guy who has really worked on his game since entering college. His freshman to sophomore jump in production is pretty significant, and not just in his raw numbers, but in his percentages too. He's really added a perimeter shot to his game, to the point where he would rarely take a three his freshman year, but by sophomore year, he was, he's probably shooting closer to almost two a game from downtown. So he's a 6'9", 210. He's pretty lean, inside out kind of game, because he's added that dimension. Super hardworking guy. When they were closed down for the pandemic, he's from the Philly area, and one of the international players went and stayed at his house with him, and they were driving an hour down to Delaware's campus 3 or 4 times a week to work out and work on their game. He still needs to add to his frame, I think, a little bit. But he really gives us that kind of stretch big that we've been really wanting for the past few years. Gives you a totally different look. I think he can probably guard a three as well. He's a pretty mobile guy. He moves really well, really skilled. He can block shots. He's got nice touch around the basket. He really was an at the basket player in high school, and has really just developed his game. The way that his arc has gone, the improvement that he's shown, really makes me like the timing of this, because I think if he were to wait another year at Delaware and transfer next year, he'd have a bunch more ACC and Big East and other big conference programs looking at him, which isn't to say that he doesn't already. I mean, I think Virginia Tech is in the mix. They've got a couple of forwards who have declared for the draft and may or may not come back. He canceled his visit to Wichita State in order to come to SLU. Makes me think that they might not really be in the mix. At points, VCU and Davidson were also said to be in there, but It really seems like Virginia Tech, as of today, is the main competition, but we'll see if he kind of stretches this out and looks at other schools. But I really like the fit on paper here.
Yeah, it's perfect. And I mean, being from Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, but
Philly.
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there in that the A10 is the perfect, uh, you know, I think Wichita State was probably the level that he was wanting to go. Like, he picked SLU over Wichita State probably because Wichita State plays in the AAC and the Billikens play in the A10. So, I mean, that's why he's looking at Virginia Tech and SLU, I think.
We play a lot of road games that his parents would be able to drive to. So yeah, even though we're not necessarily centered in those markets, we're there all the time, and it's one way to make sure you see your family a bunch throughout the year.
Yeah, so I definitely like our chances on this one. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it too. I like I said, I think Virginia Tech's the main competition right now, but they are waiting on some decisions. I do think the guys who have declared, I think they're both going to come back. If I'm just sort of reading the tea leaves, and by that I mean like mock drafts. Nevertheless, he would have to wait. So I think our main competition here, honestly, is time. If he wants to kind of keep looking at other options, that's I think the biggest threat. If he wants to decide right away, I think SLU is by far the best choice.
Let's talk about a guy who is half portaling or was half portaling, half just reopening his recruitment. Actually, all the way reopening his recruitment. I don't know
Yeah.
why I did that. Just to fill time because we have a bunch of it. Conor Turnbull made his decision, and it's interesting because now with the news of today, this decision looks a whole lot different on paper.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for SLU that Turnbull made his decision the week that we were kind of dealing with the Yuri Collins chaos. But look, Turnbull decided to reopen his recruitment when Butler underwent a head coaching change. New head coach comes in, Thad Matta, retains the assistant coach who was the primary recruiter on Turnbull. As soon as that happened, you kind of had to feel like, oh, nuts, like that's a problem because he already knows the campus, the culture, most of the roster. He's comfortable there. He revisited Butler along with SLU, and Mizzou and Iowa were kind of in the mix as well. He wound up canceling his visit to Iowa, so it was clear that it was down to SLU and Butler. I think most people thought, and then Collins said he was leaving, and regardless, I mean, it was Butler, and like he said in his commitment graphic, still feels right, which is kind of funny, but look, we would have loved to have him at SLU. I love Turnbull's game. I think he's going to be great. So sorry to see him go, but hey, transfer portal means it's never over until somebody's eligibility is out. So maybe we'll see him someday.
Let's talk about this visit the Billiken schedule, and it wasn't ideal timing for the news to come out, but Mael Crespin Glover. No, yeah, his name's just Mael Crespin, and he's French, and he has a visit scheduled.
He's a guy I knew we had been showing some interest in back in the fall, and then things were pretty quiet throughout the season on his recruitment. But he's another guy who's about 6'9". He's a bigger frame than Carr, who we were just talking about, is about 210. He's more like 235, a lot more solidly built. And he has a little more established outside game as well, which is not atypical for a Euro big man. Very comfortable shooting the three, but he's also pretty physically built and ready to mix it up inside as well. So another good inside out player. He's supposed to visit on May 2nd and 3rd. And from what I'm seeing on Twitter, he's also visiting St. Mary's and maybe Oregon State. I figured he would have at least 3, if not 5, 6 visits while he's over here. I mean, if you're going to travel internationally, you might as well go see every school that's seriously recruiting you. So I don't know where his head's at or where he stands. It's a lot harder to tell on international players. But I know Coach Michaeletti is the guy who's kind of the lead on all things European recruiting at this point.
Let's talk local since we went overseas. New offer out to Macaeleb Rich. Tell us about Macaeleb Rich, because I admittedly don't know much.
Yeah, so Rich is from East St. Louis, home of TJ Hargrove, East St. Louis High School. He is he's a really unique player. He's a load, man. Ever since he hit high school, I've kind of been tracking his recruitment, and I know SLU's coaches have too. Because he's just so he's got such a big, strong frame, and that's been true from the start. Right now, he's listed at 6'7", 220, and he plays kind of a 3. So that's the size, like, back in my day, that would have been a center in high school, and a big, strong center at that. The fact that a kid like that can play a 3, and he's so athletic. I mean, he's got a 40-inch vertical. He can really get up on dunks, on blocks, rebounds both ends. But I like kind of the pace and patience that he plays at too. He's not just like a pure raw bully. I mean, he's got a little finesse to his game. He can kind of handle it. He's comfortable shooting from mid-range and the perimeter. I really, really like his potential, and I have for a while, and I'm surprised more schools haven't been offering him. I think this might actually be his first offer. I'm gonna double check that, but he's got a lot of schools who are interested. I really like the timing of this offer. He's playing AAU ball with Southwest Illinois Jets this season. So Macaeleb Rich, keep an eye on him. Really interesting, fun player to watch. And I love his potential in the A10 and with this team.
Let's continue on the roll of positive news. Gibson Jimerson and Fred Thatch were given an honor recently. Pete, tell us about that.
Yeah, these guys were named to the Division I AAA Athletic Directors Association Scholar Athlete team. So apparently this organization is made up of 98 D1 schools that don't sponsor football. So SLU's in that, and it's a 12-player team, and they're the only set of teammates on it. Meaning, it's those two and then 10 other guys from different schools. But yeah, love to see Jimerson and Thatch, who are such great guys, representatives of the school and players, getting accolades like this. It means a lot to have players kind of making their mark in every way like this.
Back on Yuri Collins adjacent kind of news. Name, image, and likeness was obviously a hot topic this week among Billiken fans, and SLU even publicly launched a service, or a portal being an operative word these days. It's called Billiken Exchange. What do we know about this, and what is it designed to do?
So they say it's a portal that will allow for local businesses, donors, alumni, and other interested entities to connect and engage with SLU student athletes as they pursue name, image, and likeness opportunities. They're launching the service in partnership with INF LCR, which is a leading athlete brand building and NIL business management app for athletic organizations. So they're not just doing it by themselves. They're kind of going with a proven company here. It's something that's apparently been in the works for months, and it just happened to be announced vintage SLU style the day after Collins announced his intention to enter the transfer portal. So unfortunate timing of something that has kind of been in the works for a while. It is good to see SLU doing this. We've seen a lot of power conference schools doing this, so it made it feel like we're behind the curve. But I think among our peer schools in the A10 and other non-power, non-football conferences, I think we're in pretty good shape on this front. So I'm glad to see something at least there.
Yeah, this seems kind of like an Airbnb or like an Uber, kind of matching up a business with a person or a player, I guess, or a student athlete.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, because yeah, you're right. I think because it's like a peer-to-peer
right
thing.
Because supposedly the athletic department is supposed to be hands off.
Yeah, the athletic department themselves, like they'll stay out of it, and I guess the players will have access to this, right? So if you're a local company and there's a player you like or something you want to do, you can search and initiate a conversation with that player to initiate some kind of deal, and then the I guess negotiations, and you guys kind of handle it themselves. Like the businesses and players will handle that themselves is what I understand, and then
Yeah.
a direct payment comes out of that. And then the service, the INF LCR that they're working with, the app has like a what they called a verified compliance ledger. And that's sort of like, once a deal is set, you put it in there and there's like an automated disclosure that they kind of verify. And then everything goes into, it'll go through a 1099, and it's all official and on the up and up. So it's really nice to have something like this in place. I think opens things up for the athletes for sure.
Let's move on to women's basketball, Pete, and I think we'll just kind of I think we're gonna have to end up just grazing over a lot of stuff in this episode because I believe we're already at like an hour and with the interview. But women's basketball, the coaching staff has undergone a little bit of it's undergone a lot of change. It's going to undergo a complete change, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, only the grad student manager, Haley Diestelkamp, sorry if I said your last name wrong, is still listed on the official site, along with Rebecca Tillett, actually as of a couple of days ago, because she made a new associate head coach hire.
Yeah, Ryenn Michaeletti. And she's followed Tillett at every coaching stop in college, Pete.
Which is pretty crazy because Tillett hasn't always been the head coach. So they coached together at Indiana University, Pennsylvania, which is a D2 school. And then they went to, I guess, was it, was Navy? They went somewhere before Navy, right?
No, I think it was just Navy.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Navy would have been number 2. So they were at Navy together. And then I think she stayed at Navy a couple extra years. And then eventually at Longwood, Coach Tillett pulled her over there, and now she's bringing her to SLU as well. So yeah, really interesting path. I guess they just really have good chemistry and are on the same page. So, if she's talking about building culture, I like that there's somebody that she really seems to have good connection with as her associate head coach. So at least on paper, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. I'm just very interested to see how this all shakes out with her coaching staff because it's weird, and apparently she tweeted out that they got a commitment today, so we'll see what shakes out with that as well.
Yeah. We'll as soon as we hear about that, we'll post that out on Twitter.
Natalie McNeil committed to Green Bay, Pete.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
so
I hadn't seen that yet.
she transferred out from SLU and is now at Green Bay. Ty Margenthaler, and I'm assuming his wife, because I think both of them were on staff at SLU, have been hired by South Dakota.
Yeah, that's the only outgoing coaches that I've seen any news on. The way that McNeil, aside from Harbison, was the only transfer that we had any news on, and she clearly stayed in the portal. But it seems like the rest of the roster is staying put. Along with, we had talked about 3 out of the 4 recruits coming in are staying as well. But yeah, congrats to Ty and family for finding a spot, and we'll keep you updated as things change.
Moving on to soccer, nothing. There's a little bit of Billiken news, but on a grand scheme, NCAA has announced changes to the overtime rules, and I don't know if I'm a fan, Pete.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. Sometimes some stuff happens at a broader level that we kind of skip, but we were so heavily invested in soccer this past season. I think this is pretty impactful for SLU. But anyway, the NCAA changed the overtime rules Regular season games will end in a tie now if the score is tied at 90 minutes. So they're getting rid of those two 10-minute overtime periods, which had a golden goal format. And then they're keeping two 10-minute overtime periods for conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament, but without a golden goal format. So you're just going to play out those two periods. When a substitution is made by the team in the lead in the last 5 minutes, the clock will stop. So you can't just keep subbing to run it out. And then games that are still tied after the two overtime periods in conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament will end in a penalty kick shootout. So I don't know. You seem a little negative. Why is that?
It's surprising, I think, that they eliminated overtime altogether. I honestly thought they would do a PKs, at the end of. I don't know. I thought it's somewhat. I think they would. I didn't think they would move to a draw format. I thought they'd still try to end the game with one team being victorious. Obviously, it moves it's closer to the European standard of rules as
Right.
far as the base of the game goes. We still obviously don't have a running clock, but that's never going to change because a lot of it has to do with lower levels of NCAA and not having enough money to pay for a fourth official. Obviously, it would work easily in Division One, but not maybe in Division Three. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was surprising. I don't.
Yeah, I'm mostly fine with it. I don't mind them aligning more with the European model. I was kind of curious to see how it would have impacted us. This past season the women didn't win on a golden goal, but they did lose once on one their final regular season game at Rhode Island, which I think had implications for their tournament seeding. The men had a lot of overtime games this year. They
Yes.
won two of those and wound up tying three after they went scoreless across overtime. So that's a lot of extra minutes that they would not have had this season. And then BK Brian Kunderman shared um, SLU men's soccer has scored 24 golden goals since 2001. Robbie Christo, Alex Johnson, Ryan Weilman, Will John, and Vedad Ibisevic all had a program leading two golden goals in their careers. So it does put an end to that era.
Yeah. And funny enough, I think on the whole, college soccer really like. I feel like nobody ever really tries in extra time. It felt like this year more than most, the Billikens actually really tried to push for a goal in overtime.
Yeah, the men's team really did for this season. It felt like they were almost like at their most active in overtime.
Um, let's look at the spring schedules, though. Still being played under the old rules, or no rules, really. I mean, spring's kind of the Wild West. Uh, we'll just run it down. I'll run down. I'll just give the women's score, and then you can give the men's news. The women beat Central Missouri 4-1 on the 19th, and a 4-1 win at SIUE Saturday 423. Pete, talk about the men's news.
Yeah, so the men's game against Northern Illinois that was supposed to happen on Sunday, the 24th, was canceled. But the good news there is they added a transfer, and it sounds like a good one. Alberto Suarez from Central Arkansas. So he'll be a fifth-year player. He's 6'1", center back from Zaragoza, Spain. He was named the Atlantic Sun Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year last season. So Central Arkansas is one of those, like as I know a lot of people come here with a basketball mindset, might not sound like a big name. They actually are a really good soccer program, and I think they're the team this season that we were supposed to play that got canceled
Mm-hmm.
for COVID reasons, and we were never able to reschedule. So kind of funny enough, we were supposed to see them and didn't. But yeah, so it's a great soccer program, and this is kind of a similar move to Palazzolo last season, where they went out and got a veteran grad transfer to kind of anchor that back line, which is all the more crucial this year with Kip Keller departing early. So good news over there.
Um, I went down to the baseball game yesterday. That'll be Saturday now, and I accidentally walked into the ribbon cutting of the Billiken Soccer Legacy Center, and it looked like it was more of a private event than a public one. But I was just kind of shocked that it happened and we had no idea about it.
That's us doing our unofficial form of guerrilla journalism, really getting in the trenches, going where we're not supposed to go. Zach stumbling into a private ribbon cutting ceremony. But
I'm wearing a
yeah,
sleeveless basketball jersey.
clearly supposed to be there. But you say it looks pretty good?
Yeah, I mean it looks great. It was yesterday was like an explosion of like sensory overload.
Mm,
There was Relay for Life was at Herman, and they could not have been happy that the baseball game ended up being doubleheader.
yeah,
Because I mean that's hazardous to your health being anywhere around the soccer field, not paying attention to baseball.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it looks great. I didn't get to go in, obviously. I didn't even go over there. Kind of just did my own thing over by baseball. But yeah, no, it looks awesome, and it was a nice little ceremony. Chris May was there, was speaking. Obviously, Costello spoke. The soccer team, I think a couple of soccer players spoke, and just very exciting. They got to tour the facility for the first time. I know there was some video out there.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I really like, as a fan, obviously it's not a space that we're gonna really interact with much, but I really like what it does visually within Herman Stadium to kind of close off the end. It's
you've been
nice.
hanging around with me for too long.
Yeah. So now, yeah, I wouldn't mind them doing a little more of that around the stadium, but it does look great from the outside.
Um, Baseball improved to 18-5 on the season, 5-4 in conference, and I had a lot of fun actually. Well, we'll get to Saturday, but Billikens dropped an 8-5 decision to Northwestern in Chicago. Pete,
Which seems like a pretty respectable showing.
yeah,
All things considered, when you're going up to a Big Ten school, um, especially one that when we had Coach Hendrickson on, that he spoke of as like Northwestern and their stadium and their program. He keeps using that as kind of like a guideline for, here's a Northern program with a facility that I like, with kind of, he likes the way they do things. So I know he's got a lot of respect there. And yeah, their record, by the way, is 21-16 now. We didn't update that number for
oh gosh,
the weekend action. But regardless, I 8-5 loss in a one-off game up in Evanston in April, I think is not bad. They got off to kind of an unfortunate start, going down 5-0 in the second and then the third innings. But they kind of started to chip away at it after that. And it was a respectable showing. Holmes took the loss, and overall, I just like the way they kind of hung in this one.
yeah, and this weekend series with Bonaventure was really nice too. It was alumni weekend on Saturday. Ended up being a double header due to the weather that never came through today that we were expecting. Very cool. Thanks, weather people. I truly have no idea. Like they're what it's like the weather people realize that like everyone freaks out when there's big snow, so they're just trying it with like severe thunderstorms now. It's kind of a weird phenomenon. But yeah, run us down the results from this weekend.
Yeah, so they swept St. Bonaventure, 4-3 win on Friday. Logan Schmidt got the win. And then on Saturday, they win the doubleheader, 7-2. Trevor Harris wins the first one, 8-2. Scott Youngbrandt wins the second. So after a kind of a close one on Friday, they didn't make it interesting at all on Saturday. So that's great to see.
Yeah, it was cool to see all the alumni that came down. They had a tent set up and had food out for the alumni. They also gave away some sugar cookies after it was over to a bunch of people around the stadium. They were delicious, I will say that. But it was cool. I got to see inside of the production truck for ESPN Plus, and let me tell you, it is. I mean, you've seen it in the picture, but it is far from just setting up a camera, guys. This is a legit television broadcast, and I mean, think of where we've come in the last 20 years, right? Pretty incredible to see that work done. And they do a fantastic job at it too. Shout out Bobby Sutherland, and that crew, and of course Colin Surrey, I think is his. Sorry, I'm sure he'll hate me for that, but he's the announcer on there. I mean, he sat out in the sun for a doubleheader all day. I know I was burnt to a crisp, still am, but yeah, it was a good weekend. Good to see Jordan Hammerman, good friend of mine from when I was at school. He played on the baseball team, so great to see him as well. Pete, what's upcoming for the Billiken baseball?
So they will head to, or actually they'll host Rockhurst on Tuesday the 26th, before they head down to Missouri State for a one-off on Wednesday. And then Friday through Sunday, the 29th through May of April through May 1st, they will host Davidson at home. So keeping it in the state of Missouri all week.
Yeah, Davidson's going to be a tough weekend. Davidson is the class of the A10 right now in baseball. And the Billikens are looking to maybe show that they're going to contend for the title or not.
Yeah, I think that's right. Should be a pretty telling weekend for them. So
and those will all be on ESPN Plus. But get down there if you haven't yet. They do have concessions set up with soda, beer, snacks. No dogs out there, unfortunately. That's hot dogs. Not you can bring your dog. Let's talk about softball. They also played Bonaventure, but they made the trip up to Olean. And I got to say, man, the parents really follow this team. There was at least 10 to 15 parents behind home plate for this one.
Yeah, they do. And that's great because we were just talking about ESPN Plus and what a great job they do. And I mean, what is that if not like the ultimate tool for parents these days, right? I mean,
Yes.
like think about all the niche college sports that are on that all the time. And that's like what a incredible thing to have if you're a parent today versus like even 10 years ago. Not being able to ever see your kid play if they're, across the country playing in college or something like that. So the fact that they have that, and then, I mean, yeah, the fact that they're traveling is just incredible,
And it's Olean, New York.
It's not an easy place to get to, as we say, what feels like every third episode or so of this show. They played a doubleheader on Saturday, and we'll circle back to the game they played on Monday briefly, but up in Olean, they did play a doubleheader on Saturday, and then one on Sunday, and they got the sweep, and it was never really close. They won 3-0, 6-1 on Saturday, 9-1 in a 6-inning game on Sunday. Just went up there and took care of business. Chloe Wendling got that first shutout. And then on Saturday, Taylor Hockman got a complete game win. Everybody was great up there, but like you say, maybe St. Bonaventure isn't the best measuring stick.
No, but I tell you what is a decent measuring stick, and that is Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, a very, very good softball team. And unfortunately, the Billikens had to go up against them on Monday, and they dropped a 19-0 decision. I mean, look, this is a team that's beaten ranked teams. It's going to be an NCAA tournament team, maybe a College World Series, Women's College World Series dark horse. But it's good to get that. You got a team that kicks your ass, but you're going to go to Bonaventure team, you're going to kick their ass. So it's nice.
There's a couple factors here. One of them is Louisiana just being a really good non-major conference softball program. You know, they just are. They're 32 in the net. They're just outside the top 25 when you look at the coaches' rankings. So this is, for all intents and purposes, this is a ranked team, a ranked tier team.
Right.
The other factor here is if you've got an ace pitcher, um, it's just really hard to I don't know, to beat that pitcher in softball.
Right.
She came in 5 innings and allowed 1 hit, 13 strikeouts in 5 innings. And that's just, I don't know, 16 batters faced and you strike out all but 3 of them. And only put three balls in play. You know, SLU held their own defensively over the first few innings. Louisiana had 2 in the first, 2 in the second, and then things just opened up in the 4th and 5th innings. So, you know, SLU gets a little credit for kind of hanging tough in the beginning there. But when you're going up against a pitcher like that, and then a team like this, you just want a respectable showing.
It shows the stark contrast, though, between a program like Louisiana, a program like the Billikens, and then Bonaventure, who St. Bonaventure, nobody cares less about bat and ball sports than St. Bonaventure. Baseball hasn't been above 500 since 2017, and softball's been bad for at least a decade.
Having been up to Bonaventure for a game and kind of seeing the area up there, I cannot imagine. I mean, we've talked to our SLU's coaches about how tough it is when you're playing in a place that has a real winter. I can't imagine up at Bonaventure. I mean, the spring is so short up there, between the time that you actually have some decent weather and the time that classes are done. It's no time at all. So I can certainly understand that. I don't know. I almost look at those sports and I'm like, why don't you just, I know you've got some scholarships to use and whatnot. Why don't you field other sports? Like, why are you even bothering with these two?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's rough, and I mean, you know, Hendo was talking about how insane the weather has been down here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can't even imagine. I imagine he would shudder at the idea of trying to coach an Olean, an outdoor, you know, a spring sport.
Ugh, yeah.
Uh, Billikens, the upcoming slate, we got Mizzou and George Washington.
Yeah, the Mizzou game was rescheduled from the 20th. That'll be played on the 27th. And then the weekend series, the 30th through the 1st, will be at George Washington.
Just running through men's tennis real quick. Finished the regular season 8-12 after a 4-2 win, or a 4-2 win over Northern Illinois on Monday. That was the 18th of April. Swept the doubles competition to win the point, and then won the first 3 of 6 singles matches, grabbing one in the back half to seal the win. Oscar Alvarez, Ryota Fukushima, Theo Ortiz, and Pavel Badians all won singles matches. The A10 championships will be at the end of the month in Orlando. Pete, what happened on the women's side?
Yeah, the women's played. They played an exhibition on Monday the 18th at Lindenwood, kind of a final tune-up between the regular season and the A10 championships at the end of the month in Orlando. So they finished the regular season with a 12-7 record. So pretty nice season for them. Tell us where we were in track and field.
Yeah, Kentucky Invitational 4-2 through 423. The women accomplished 4 PBs. The men got 15 PBs. And Toby Gillen made the all-conference indoor team along with Katie Wissing, who was all-academic for the second straight season. Next up is kind of a famous race on the college scene. The Drake Relays on 428 through 430. It's the final regular season event before the A10 Conference Championships.
Yeah, Drake Relays are a big deal in the track world, so it's going to be interesting to see how they do there. You know, like Zach said, there's a lot of personal records that they set down in Kentucky. If you want to get more detail on those, be sure and follow our guy John Bell on Twitter. So look at His handle's jbell30. And then, if not, just go to SLU's official website. It's pretty impressive how many personal bests were broken down there.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up an insane week that was in Billiken athletics. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, all lowercase except for the P. I've been advised that that's the case. At Zach Miller MMP on Twitter. We're now on Instagram too at the same handle, Midtown Mad Pod. So give us a follow there. We also appreciate any and all suggestions you might have for the show. Go subscribe to the show on all platforms. And if you haven't left a review, please do so. Make sure it's 5 stars. And then drop a little constructive criticism if you feel like it. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.